Malcolm had nothing left but long nights, old regrets, and a car that rattled like his past. Sasha, she had it all, until the world she built came crashing down. When the paths cross, it's not love at first sight. It's honesty, discomfort, and the kind of truth most people run from. Mr. Uncomfortable, a slow burn romance about healing, heartbreak, and hope. Book and soundtrack coming soon. Go to MrUncomfortable.com. That's MISTER, uncomfortable.com. The Tulsa mayor commits $105 million to reparations package for 1921 race massacre. All right, so let's take a look at this article from NPR. Let's see. This actually is technically reparations or not, because once again we have these politicians talking about reparations and packages and all this other stuff. But yeah, let's go into it. More than a century after the 1921 Tulsa race massacre claimed more than 300 black lives and destroyed a thriving neighborhood, the city's mayor unveiled a landmark $105 million reparations package. Okay, so let's think about that. $105 million reparations package to address the lasting impacts of the devastating attack. Announced on Sunday, the package is the first major initiative to meet the massacre, one of the deadliest acts of racial violence in U.S. history, with monetary commitments. We've worked to recognize and remember, but now it's time to take the next big steps to restore, said Monroe Nichols, Tulsa's first black mayor. Nichols' support establishes a private charitable trust called the Greenwood Trust, which will work to secure $105 million over the course of the next year before the 105th anniversary of the massacre. The money from the trust will be divided into three main initiatives. One's going to be the $24 million. Will establish a housing fund to support home ownership and housing assistance for descendants. $60 million will target cultural preservation, improving existing buildings and cleaning up the area. And $21 million will be designated for land acquisition and development, small business grants, and scholarships. All right, so the article goes on and talks about, imagine if Greenwood would have continued to thrive uninterrupted. Nicholas said, attendees at a Sunday's memorial celebration, imagine what that would have meant for our economy. Imagine what it would have meant for outcomes for our children. All right, so who is Monroe Nichols? Monroe Nichols is an American politician who has served as the mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma since 2024. He previously served in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, representing the 72nd district from 2016 to 2024. Nichols was born in Waco, Texas. He played high school and college football at Bishop Louis Reicher Catholic School and the University of Tulsa. After graduation, he worked in Tulsa Mayor Kathy Taylor's administration. In 2008, he unsuccessfully ran for the 72nd District of Oklahoma House of Representatives, but in 2016, he won the election to represent the district. He is the first African American to represent the district and won re-election in 2018, 2020, and 2022. In 2024, Nichols was elected mayor of Tulsa, the first African American elected to the position. He assumed office on December 2nd, 2024. And also to note, Mayor Nichols is a Democrat. All right, so in another article written by Insight News, the title is Tulsa Mayor Launches $105 Million Greenwood Trust to Repair Massacre Legacy. All right. So as within the previous article, it goes and talks about the $105 million private charitable fund, but I did want to touch on some other notes that it looks like the mayor has established or will be establishing. It says, since taking office in December 2024, Nichols has established Tulsa Race Massacre Observance Day, released more than 45,000 historical records, and remains committed to the city's 1921 graves investigation. His proposed fiscal year 2026 budget includes nearly $1 million for excavation work at Oakland Cemetery. Nichols also includes the city's community engagement genealogy project, funded in part by a Department of Justice Emmett Till grant, with ongoing genealogy workshops, cold case training, and a new exhibit at the Greenwood Cultural Center. The massacre was hidden from history books, only to be followed by the intentional acts of redlining, a highway built to choke off economic vitality, and the perpetual and underinvestment of local, state, and federal governments, Nichols said. Now it's time to take the next big steps to restore. All right, so just as a reminder, last year in 2024, according to this PBS article, it says Oklahoma Supreme Court dismisses lawsuit from last two survivors of Tulsa Race Massacre seeking reparations. The Oklahoma Supreme Court on Wednesday dismissed a lawsuit of the last two survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, dampening the hope of advocates for racial justice that the government would make amends for one of the worst single acts of violence against black people in U.S. history. The 9-member court upheld the decision made by a district court judge in Tulsa last year, ruling that the plaintiff's grievances, although legitimate, did not fall within the scope of the state's public nuisance statute. Quote, "We further hold that the plaintiff's allegations do not sufficiently support a claim for unjust enrichment," the court wrote in its decision. Messages left Wednesday with a spokesperson for the city of Tulsa and the survivors' attorney, Demario Solomon Simmons, were not immediately returned. The suit was an attempt to force the city of Tulsa and others to make recompense for the destruction by a white mob of the once thriving black district known as Greenwood. In 1921, on May 31st and June 1st, the white mob, including some people hastily deputized by authorities, looted and burned the district, which was referred to as Black Wall Street. As many as 300 black Tulsans were killed, and thousands of survivors were forced for a time into internment camps overseen by the National Guard. Burned bricks and a fragment of a church basement are about all that survive today of the more than 30-block historically black district. The two survivors of the attack, Leslie Benenfield Randall and Viola Fletcher, who are now over 100 years old, sued in 2020 with the hope of seeing what their attorney called, quote, justice in their lifetime, unquote. A third-party plaintiff, Hughes Van Ellis, died last year at age 102. May you rest in peace. The lawsuit was brought under Oklahoma's public nuisance law, arguing that the actions of the white mob continue to affect the city today. It contended that Tulsa's long history of racial division and tension stemmed from the massacre. The city and insurance companies never compensated victims for their losses, and the massacre ultimately resulted in racial and economic disparities that still exist today. The lawsuit argued it sought a detailed accounting of the property and wealth lost or stolen in the massacre, the construction of a hospital in North Tulsa, and the creation of a victims' compensation fund, among other things. A little demographic information about Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa is the second largest city of the U.S. state of Oklahoma and the county seat of Tulsa County. The city was estimated in 2011 by the U.S. Census Bureau to have 396,466 residents. All right, let's see here. According to the 2000 census, Tulsa had a population of 3,906, and the racial and ethnic composition was as follows. White American 62%, African American 15%, Native American 5.3%, Asian American 2.3%, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander 0.1%, other race 8%, two or more races 5.9%, Hispanic or Latino at 14.1%. All right, looks like according to a paper titled Oil and Blood, The Color of Wealth in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The title of the article is Professor Author's Report on Tulsa's Racial Wealth Gap. Dr. C. Adrian Lee, an assistant professor in the Regional and City Planning Division, is the first author on the report Oil and Blood, The Color of Wealth in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This report is part of a series of reports that investigates the modern racial wealth gap in 6 major U.S. cities published by the Samuel Du Bois Cook Center on Social Equity at Duke University. Oil and Blood explains how the Tulsa massacre destroyed the economic gains previously attained by black residents of Tulsa in the wake of the oil boom at the turn of the 20th century. While Tulsa was once home to a thriving black Wall Street in the Greenwood district, it now has the largest black-white wealth gap in the 6 cities the Samuel Du Bois Cook Center has studied. The average black household in Tulsa possesses just 9% of the wealth of the average white household. The report finds that the specific black/white wealth gap in Tulsa stems largely from differences in the rate of entrepreneurship and home ownership between the two groups. The differences in entrepreneurship and home ownership are likely the long-lasting effects of the 1921 Tulsa massacre, during which many businesses and homes of black residents were destroyed. All right, so a couple things to note here. One, how is the fund going to be established in terms of eligibility? Right? Who's actually going to be saying, okay, these are the people that are going to be receiving this or these benefits, quote unquote, from this fund? And currently there is no direct cash payments given to the living Tulsa Race Massacre survivors or any descendants that were harmed in the 1921 race massacre in Tulsa. And also without direct cash payments like the Jewish and Japanese American communities that they received, is this really reparations? I know it did mention in the article, or one of the articles, and they did talk about or use the words monetary, but I don't think, a housing program or, an education program or, building up communities is direct cash payments and compensation. So, you might think otherwise. Please let us know in the comments if you do, or if you feel like this is reparations, or if this is not reparations. Let us know as well. All right, so please like, share, and subscribe to your number one source of news and reparations, and we will see you next time. Peace and reparations.